right, good evening. It is 7:30. It is Monday, May 20th, and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of Worcester City Council. Tonight's meeting is here in council chambers and live streamed on YouTube. And our next regular meeting will be Monday, June 3rd of 2024. With that, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please call the roll of our council members.
Mr. Abernathy.
Here.
Mr. Gaffey.
Here.
Mr. Huzay.
Here.
Ms. Knappich.
Here.
Mr. Malta.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Warden.
Here.
All right, we're all here. Thank you for being here. We have a quorum, and the agenda will remain as presented. At this time, I'll ask you to stand with the members of City Council and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion on the approval from the minutes from our last meeting?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Myers. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Mr. Abernathy. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are approved. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening.
We'll open the floor up to you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here tonight, glad to have all our visitors. Some, I think, for various reasons, but glad to have you here for whatever reason nonetheless. Another busy 2 weeks since our last meeting. I'll start off the day after our last meeting. We had the 75th anniversary recognition of Siemens on the square. Thanks to Mr. Millay for putting that together. I thought, and again, the weather cooperated, and anytime you're doing an event that's somewhat weather dependent, that's the key, is making sure the right weather shows up, and it did. But I thought it was well, John put together a very good program. It was well received. Thanks, we had a number of council people, I think, show up and participate, appreciate that. WDC, the Chamber, Main Street were all part of it, so I think we showed ourselves well for that, and for a very deserving employer in our community, a big part of that. Had a lunch with Gabe Tudor to discuss the updates to their facilities plan. Again, I keep going back to this, but I think the success of the Worcester City School District, it's independent from us technically and legally, but it's a big part of the key to our success going forward. So I want to make sure we're working together as much as we can. That same day, I had a meeting with Judge Wiles. We were talking about a bunch of community mental health issues. Again, another recurring theme. You see it throughout, not just what the city's doing, but what the hospital's doing, what the county's doing in terms of the jail expansion. Mental health issues are a huge challenge for us in the community, and it's going to take a coordinated effort to address. And I'm not going to, there's no silver bullets out there. We're not making it go away, but we got to stay after it. On the 10th, Worcester Community Hospital did a half-day board retreat for the board, and again, that's, people ask me all the time, okay, what have you, in the first 5 months of being in office, what's the thing that has been a surprise the most? And the amount of medical information and administrative medical information that's being thrown at me is kind of overwhelming, but the more I learn, the more impressed I am. So they had another set of ratings data come out recently, and if I told you that the hospital was like in the top 90% in this country, you'd feel real good about that. And if I told you it was in the top 99%, you'd feel even better. Well, the last metric they came out with, they're in the top 99.3%. So they're just doing phenomenal work locally, and we can be very proud of them and the efforts they do. Last week we had a meeting, Joel and I had a meeting with Tiffany Kessner, the new director of the Counseling Center, an opportunity to talk to her and talk about some of our challenges, some of our goals, and I thought that went well. That same day, separate meetings, we met with Dave Emmerman from the Ohio EPA out of Twinsburg. Dave is, I guess, making an effort to go to all the new mayors throughout his region. He's got an 8-county region, and talk about issues. And I think Joel and I had different maybe views about what his agenda was. I think he's trying to get a sense of where communities are at with regards to a number of issues, and two that maybe you are familiar with, but if not, you maybe should be. One is PFAS, the forever chemicals issue, and the second is the lead water service pipes, not the mains, but the service pipes. Those are two issues that are in the EPA's radar, and because it's on their radar, it means eventually it's going to be on our radar. And the interesting challenge on PFAS, and again, I'm learning this, at the same time you are pretty much, is that they're now talking about thresholds below the point they could even measure just a short few years ago. So obviously, it's going to be a real challenge. We're very fortunate in two respects. First of all, we've got a lot of wells, I don't know how many, but multiple. So if we have a well with a problem, we have the option of going elsewhere, and there are smaller communities that aren't going to have that option. We're just fortunate. Also, I got to say that, the prior administration, and give Joel and people, before me, have been pretty aggressive in taking these on. And these just didn't pop up this year. So we are well ahead of the curve, and that's just not me saying that. That's what Dave Emmerman was saying, is that we're pretty well situated going forward on that. But again, we're not done with it. Those problems aren't going away. Another one where there's no silver bullets, we're going to be dealing with this probably the rest of our terms here, and maybe thereafter. The following day, we had the monthly WDC meeting out at Scheffler. I think probably everybody here has been through a Scheffler presentation, but everyone I'm at, I'm more impressed by the work they did. And again, lots of positive news from around the county going on. The same day, at 5:30 or so, Joel and I went up to the Safety Service Center and sat through a shift change. So what we're trying to do is get around, and a lot of it's for my benefit, getting to know the employees on a smaller group basis as opposed to seeing 30 or 40 people at a time. And it was really interesting to watch, basically there's one shift going off, one shift going on, and watch the turnover. What they do, their protocols in place for kind of, telling the guys coming on, guys and women, here's what we've been doing the last 12 hours, here's the things you got to keep an eye on. And when I say, this isn't done verbally. There's a system, there's a screen going through. It's pretty impressive. So it was kind of a neat experience from that. But that was one shift, so we caught one shift. We've got another one going on next week, I think, and will we have a third one after that? So we've done the same through the fire department, and now we're working our way through the police department. But a lot of fun, very educational. Had a Wayne Trails meeting on the 15th, which was another fun. It was a lunch meeting, but instead of having lunch, we all showed up at CFAS, CFAES, as you know, what the old people call the OERDC, and they loaded us into one of the vans, one of the OSU vans, and we spent 45 minutes driving around the city, looking at all the projects in process, and also kind of previewed some ones that are possibly in the works, including you may remember from last time, and it was included in Joel's report, we secured a grant for $855,000 to improve a trail. It's not a bike trail, it's a, help me there, what am I looking for? It's a multi-purpose trail, pedestrian bike from ATI into downtown. So we looked at some of the courses for that. Same day, we met with Mr. Starlin and his group, and had a good meeting. I don't want to leave Mr. Druschel out. He was in attendance as well. But had a good meeting talking about Spring Run and how, their next development, how we can make sure that that gets off to a timely start. And the two caveats, I think I meant, I don't know if I said those that night, but, we're trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to allow these builders to move forward. But we want to make sure, and like Mr. Charlie and Mr. Druschel understand that, we think it's the same courtesy we give to anybody. Just because we know them is not, we didn't give any special accommodation, but, we try to serve the people, and that's what our job is. That same day, we had a meeting with J.T. Huffer Cole from Senator Sherrod Brown's office. He is an aide there and it was a kind of a two-way dialogue. He was looking for community feedback on what's, the pressing issues of our residents. We were looking for money. And I take, no shame in that. That's part of my job description. We've got a lot of tax dollars flowing out of our community to the federal government, the state government, and the county government. And as much as we can bring back into the community, I'm all for. So we will do our best there. But I thought we had a good meeting. I won't try to fool you. Joel gets the grant end much better than I do. So when they start talking about grants, my eyes kind of glaze over. But Joel and JT made some progress there. We also have started an employee academy. And this isn't the first time we've done this. I think they've done it in the past. When I say we, that's the collective we. Certainly wasn't me. But every few years they do this for new employees. And I think if you're in the first or second year employee, you're part of that. 5 sessions in all, and they had 8 employees sign up, and I sat through most of the first meeting, and it seemed like it was very informative. A lot of, for the new council members, probably not a whole lot different than what we talked about when we did our orientation. And if you've been through the Leadership Worcester class, that's not the right name for our Citizens Academy. It's a very similar format to what that is. But again, just because you get hired here doesn't mean you necessarily understand city government. So it hopefully gave people kind of an overview of how the city functions. That same day, we had a luncheon. WDC had a luncheon at Greystone with Loretta Mester, who's president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank. It was very well attended. I'm sure there are people here that were there, and again, very informative talk. And Saturday, the Worcester PD sponsored a Thin Blue Line community walk at Worcester High School. There were a number of people, I'm sure, here that participated. It was a beautiful day for that. A nice event, but in recognition of, this was May 15th, was Peace Officers Memorial Day, and all U.S. flags were flown at half staff. And one of the things, they had a brief program there. During the course of the year last year, we had 137 officers across the country who lost their lives in the line of duty. So again, it was a nice time. It was a nice opportunity to get together and talk to other people. Walking around the track is a good opportunity to do that, but I guess remembering the purpose behind it was foremost. This Saturday, we had our first farmers market of the year, and then today we had another round of CFO interviews at the Worcester Community Hospital. Just as a refresher course, Scott Boys is going to fill Bill Sharon's spot. We've known that for months now. It's a matter of filling Scott's spot. So we feel like we're very close on that one. We've said that before, but we really feel this time that we're very close. So we'll see how that plays out. Upcoming events, the 22nd, which is Wednesday, first meeting of the steering committee for a review of the zoning code. I think a number of you are on that committee. Again, what we're looking at is making changes to the zoning code. It's going to go through the steering committee first. It's going to end up in front of council eventually, and you'll discuss it and do what the council's going to do with it. We'll find out down the road. But this is just the first step. We'll see how that goes. Simultaneously with that, we're not sure how we're going to cover that. We've got a Medway meeting coming up to talk about some governance issues, and Joel and I are going to divide those up somehow between ourselves. On that same day, we have Chris Blaze coming in from Daisy. And Joel, somehow we're giving him money, right?
Correct, yes. Several years ago, we awarded them a JCTC. So we, each year of that, we owe them a check. So part of it's to give that check to them, but also just to, recognize everything they've been doing over the last several years. We've been talking to them quite a bit about their expansion plans and where they're going to be in the next few years, and which is all good news for us. So just an opportunity to meet him. It's been a while, I think. Jonathan, I don't remember last time he was here, but 2 or 3 years. But president of the company.
So we're kind of using me being the new kid as an opportunity to reach out, maybe to have some meetings with some employers that have been here for a long time And Joel's been here for a long time, Jonathan's been here for a long time, I've not though, so it's a chance for us to kind of reach out, get to form a little bit more of a personal relationship with some of them. This weekend, Freelander Pool, Knightsfield Spray Ground, Christmas Run, all opening up, so looking forward to that. Hopefully the weather holds. Monday's Memorial Day, I'll touch on that a little more in a second. May 28th, and I put flyers out. This came through over the weekend. The Board of Elections is putting on a voter academy, and I congratulate that for doing that. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and this is an opportunity to find out more. It's online, and again, the only thing I would say is it sounds like registration is free, but required. So, or excuse me, participation is free, pre-registration required. So the window to do that is probably very limited at this point. And then the 31st, there's a retirement ceremony for Sue Smale, who's retiring as county commissioner after many years of public service. And then June 17th, you saw that we have a firefighter swearing-in ceremony and tour of Fire Station 1 on the books. And just a reminder, the swearing-in will be up at the service center. The tour obviously won't take place at the service center. It'll take place at Fire Station number 1. Joel got his memo out on Friday, covered a lot of ground. I touched on a number of those. Joel, is there anything you want to add to what I said from your memo?
We left the end there. Just a couple of things. Bob mentioned the PFAS rules, which were put out by the U.S. EPA. So those have to go to the state. So we'll be giving you a more lengthy summary of where those are at, where we're at as a city, and what our plans are moving forward. And we'll have that for you probably within the next couple of weeks. Mike, our utilities manager, has been working with our state representatives, our state EPA representatives anyway, to finalize some of that moving forward. So we'll give you a better feel for that probably in the next week or two. So you'll have that. Still a lot of things up in the air. I did want to mention, since we have the scouts here, and it was in the memo, was the Eagle Scout project up at Kinney Field. They replaced the bridge there. I don't know if you noticed or not, but doing a little bit of digging, found out that was originally a Eagle Scout project as well, by Daryl Mosier, who is in our finance department right now. So just interesting, come full circle, have that replaced again. The other thing, Jonathan just handed you all a memo. It's a lot of light reading, but I mentioned it in about 2 paragraphs in my memo, just that, some of the Port Authority financing and those kind of things. So that's a much more detailed summary of those kind of things, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more. And ultimately, we move forward with that. We'll have to have some council authorization legislation to move forward with that, but good news all around. TCI downtown, I mentioned that briefly. Just wanted to mention that that's been going well. We're starting to put together right now. We see an end in sight, hopefully before the end of the year. So we'll be putting together some RFPs to put out for redevelopment of that site, hopefully by the end of the year. So things are looking pretty well there. One of the things you mentioned, Daisy, and part of that also is something when we did our economic development strategic plan. Some of the objectives in there was for us to just get out into into our business community and meet with and just develop relationships with some of those. And so Daisy was one of them on the list. The other one we've worked with is Frito-Lay. And we just had a meeting with them last week as well. So some sort of exciting things there if things move forward. And so I just wanted to mention that. And lastly, I know I mention this every couple of weeks, but the aggregation opt-out notices should have been sent out starting today. And so we've been putting some things out on our social media and our website, getting the information out there as much as we can. And I think other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. Now, try to give you a quick preview of what we are presenting to council for action on in terms of an agenda review. But before I do so, I want to clarify two pieces of legislation from last meeting. One, providing for the allocation of the bed tax dollars, and the second, raising the threshold at which matters are brought before council from $50,000 to $75,000. First of all, it was mentioned that, well, with those combination of those two things, that bed tax allocation won't be coming back to us anymore because it's in that range. And I don't think that's true. I think we accepted out the bed tax legislation, so it'll come to council anytime, but we'll double check that. And if I'm wrong on that one, we'll make it so. We'll bring it to council and give you legislation to fix that. And that's one of the things we talked about, is that council's always got the ability to say, as a general rule, $75,000 is the limit, but we're going to target certain things that we want a lower limit, which is perfectly within council's right. So we'll check that. I don't think we need to do anything, but we'll make sure of that. The second thing, the question was raised, okay, who made this decision? Was it council or the administration? Well, the administration processed the applications, we reviewed them, talked to the applicants, but ultimately that's a council decision. We presented it to you and said, here's what we think works, but, keep in mind that was a council decision. So you were free to, and again, it's already passed, so, pardon?
We never saw the proposals or the application.
But you saw the numbers. So you had a chance, you had a chance to say, let's keep it on first reading. I want to review the proposals. I want to see the numbers. I want to talk to all these people. That was council's prerogative. But ultimately, that's council's decision. So next time around, when that comes around, you've got that opportunity, to dive into it. If you want to, get into those numbers, absolutely, you're right to do so. So don't think that we're trying to usurp your authority there, because we presented it to you and you chose to act on it. And that was your call. New legislation, 14 items, so a busy night, all on first reading. I checked and double-checked this. I'm pretty sure I've got this right now. Items 4, 5, 6, and 10 are budgeted. That means those 4 items do not require 3 readings. Everything else is on first reading, so we'll either need to stay on first reading or you'll need to vote to suspend the rules. Running through them real quickly, 2024-18 is Mr. Abernathy. He's going to appropriate or ask to appropriate some COVID funds of approximately $24,000. Next is a bigger item by a factor of about 100, I think. He's going to present the annual tax budget. 2024-35 is Ms. Warden. It's a new roundabout project, and she will have all the details. This one has some urgency. So again, I try to, we've tried to commit to telling you which ones have some urgency to them. 2024-35 does. 2024-36 is Mr. Malta with a sanitary sewer bid. 37 is Ms. Warden with a micro surfacing bid. Again, both those are budgeted. 38 is Ms. Warden again with the other roundabout project that we've already discussed, again budgeted. And those 3 items are just to take those things to bid. Then we've got 2 items that involve public hearings, both of them with Ms. Knappich. The first is rezoning legislation related to the Spring Run developers. That'll be first, and again involves a public hearing. And the second are the zoning amendments related to the public hearing on recreational marijuana sales or dispensaries. And again, I think council knows this, but I'll say it for the benefit of the public. The administration is here to support council on that one. We are not taking a position. We've drafted legislation that if council chooses to adopt it, would treat recreational marijuana dispensaries much the same as we have with medical marijuana dispensaries now. But whether council adopts it or not is up to council, and all I'll say is we'll support you whatever you do on this, because it's a tough question. Our community was pretty well split on this. It narrowly passed locally. State of Ohio passed it not so narrowly, so that's where the state of the law is. The other one that's related to it, and doesn't involve a public hearing, but it's a related piece of legislation, is the next one. That's 2024-39, and that's a resolution to repeal the moratorium. So probably the only thing I would say is that we ought to be consistent in how we handle those 2 pieces of legislation. And then the last budgeted item, 2024-40, is Mr. Mulligan, a water treatment plant bid. Then we end up with 4 items related to CDBG grants, community block development grants, and those do have some urgency, and maybe when we get to that point of the agenda, Mr. Montgomery can elaborate on those a little bit. But those are all Mr. Montgomery. So that's my not-so-quick rundown. I apologize for that. We'll close with 2 things, more serious note. First of all, I don't know if anybody caught the obituary in the paper, I think it was in today, for Frank Meadows. And that name may not mean anything to a lot of you here, but for the old people that grew up here, and Mr. Myers is in that boat certainly, and myself, and Mr. Druschel, I don't know that anybody's as old as Mr. Druschel, but Frank Meadows was Parks and Recreation. He was the Ashley before we had Ashley. So he was very much a fixture and just a great guy. I spent a lot of years on a couple of community boards with him, and great life, well lived. And then finally, Memorial Day. On Monday, I'll just put in a plug. There's a parade in the morning. If you can make that, great. If you can make it out to the cemetery, even better. I've said this a bunch in the last 4 months where I'm really honored to be elected and do this, but some things more than others, and this is a big one, because I'm going to be part of the parade and up on the grandstand. Fortunately, I'm not asked to say a thing. I just got to sit there, but this is a big deal. So at the very least, even if you can't make it out there, remember sometime during the day. I was talking to Mr. Sanders on Friday. His grandfather spent 2 years in a German POW camp. We've all got stories like that in our families, I'm sure. So, again, that's all I got.
Accept.
I got one more note. Fortunately, Ms. Hamilton clued me in on this one, because if I had to rely on these scribbles, I would never know what this was. But we have a TRC board that some of you, a Tax Incentive Review Committee board, and it's my job to appoint people to that board to serve on there. And we have a person with an expiring term, and Alicia Holford is the person, and we would just like to reappoint her to another term. And does council have to take action on that?
Yeah.
Is it on their agenda anywhere?
No. It is now.
Okay, so there we go.
Okay, very good. So related to what the mayor just spoke about for the TIRC appointee, do I have a motion to accept that appointee?
Yes.
Motion by Ms. Knappich, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. We don't have to do a roll call on that, do we? Okay. All right, so council, all those in favor of appointing Ms. Holford to the TIRC, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, you've got your reappointee, so very good. Okay, so we have no petitions. We do, however, have a couple individuals that have signed up for communications from the public. Mr. Helmuth wanted to speak now regarding the recreational marijuana legislation.
Is this part of the public hearing?
What's that?
Should we have this as part of the public hearing?
I guess we could. I mean, at this point, they've signed up, but we could push it back.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. Please proceed, sir.
Hello, council. My name is Dennis Helmuth. I'm a long-term resident of Worcester, Ohio. I am also a medical doctor specializing in psychiatry. I am board certified in both general psychiatry and addiction psychiatry. So the cannabis issue is not just of academic interest to me. I see the results of cannabis products on my patients' mental health every day. In fact, I have a whole PowerPoint presentation on the effects of cannabis products on mental health. I've presented it to several community restrict my comments to 3 main points. The first point is that there were good reasons to vote for the legalization of recreational marijuana in the state of Ohio. Many of us felt that medical marijuana was kind of a sham, and it was more honest to just make it legal outright. Also, making marijuana legal helps eliminate an entire unregulated underground economy. It also helps eliminate a whole class of nonviolent criminals that end up clogging up our jails and prisons. Also, it's in accord with our American value of individual liberty. So there were a lot of good reasons to vote for legalization of marijuana in the state of Ohio. But that does not mean that it's a good thing for our town of Worcester, Ohio, which is a family-oriented college town. There are already at least 47 towns in Ohio that have banned the sale of recreational marijuana, including Westlake, Beechwood, North Olmsted, North Royalton, Brunswick, Medina Township, and Westlake. In the state of Michigan, where recreational marijuana has been available for a couple of years, 73% of municipalities have opted out of selling it. So I've heard it argued that because residents of the city of Worcester narrowly voted to legalize the sale of recreational marijuana, that we are somehow obligated to follow through with that and allow stores in the city of Worcester. What we voted for was for the legalization of marijuana in the state of Ohio. That doesn't mean that it's the right thing for Worcester. And it's not just a matter of not in my backyard. We don't want to be known as that little backwater where you can buy weed, for one thing. And for another thing, there are certain businesses that are more appropriate for a large city than for a small, family-oriented college town such as ours, like casinos, for example. So I think it can be consistent to have both voted for recreational marijuana, but at the same time realize that it's not the right thing for Worcester, Ohio. In the request for agenda item for this meeting, it stated that, and this is my second point, it stated that the recreational marijuana project would not incur any additional cost to the city. I think that's incorrect. The experience of other states and municipalities that have legalized marijuana have incurred costs. In New York, where recreational marijuana has been legalized for a couple of years, is a prime example. A year ago in New York City, there were 1,400 stores selling marijuana. One of them was legal. What municipalities find is they really don't have the police and financial resources to shut down the stores that are selling cannabis products illegally. And if Albany gets around to shutting down one of these places, the store pays a fine and opens back up in a few months. I was just in New York City a couple of weeks ago for the APA annual meeting, and there were more stores selling marijuana than there were Starbucks as I walked through the city. So I understand that we're not New York City, but I think it's naive to assume that it's not going to put a strain on our police and our justice system to monitor which of these outlets are legal and illegal. And if we're depending on the state to regulate this, kind of technical, but there's a thing in psychiatry that has become known recently as THC-induced psychosis. It's a real thing. It's a horrible mental disorder. It's caused by the high-potency cannabis products that are on the market today, whether they're legal or illegal. It's more common in young people up to about age 30. Our emergency rooms are being inundated with it. So this is basically a severe mental disorder that is precipitated by THC products. We heard from the mayor earlier that our emergency room is already being strained by the mental health needs of the community. We heard that, or I saw on the agenda that Vice Arts Clinic is trying to expand their psychiatric services. We're kind of stretched to the limits in trying to serve the people who have mental health problems in this city. And the availability of cannabis products will only make it worse. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to talk to some of the emergency room psychiatrists that cover the emergency room at Summa Hospital in Akron. And they say that they're inundated with cases of THC-induced psychosis. In my talk, I show a graph that shows an exponential rise in THC-induced psychosis in emergency rooms throughout the country. People don't realize the change in potency of these cannabis products. When I was in college 46 years ago, a marijuana cigarette contained about 6 milligrams of THC. So if you shared it with a couple of friends, the total dose of THC that you got was maybe 2 or 3 milligrams. These dispensaries are selling edibles that contain 80, 100, 200, up to 250 milligrams per gummy. So just think about the difference between a 2 or 3 milligram dose and a 250 milligram dose. It's not the same drug. If you eat one of those 250 milligram gummies, especially if you're a young person, I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to end up in the emergency room. And even if you're using smaller amounts, people have had really bad experiences with these high doses of THC. So I guess my point is, if you're a full-grown adult and you want to drive to Mansfield or Canton or Akron or Cleveland and stock up on some cannabis products, you have every right to do so. But that doesn't mean that that's what we should be doing in Worcester. It sends the wrong message to our young people. It sends the wrong message to the young people who attend the College of Worcester. It's not right for a family-oriented college town. So I would propose that the council not only extend the moratorium on the sale of marijuana in Worcester, but join the other at least 47 Ohio communities that have made it a ban. Thank you, and happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you. Have one other person that signed up, Carrie Snyder.
Evening. I'm here today to ask you to consider continuing the moratorium on marijuana dispensaries in the city of Worcester. I recently attended a League of Women Voters event with Speaker Dr. Dennis Helmuth, whom you just heard from. He spent an hour and a half discussing the grave harm caused by marijuana, especially with the potency that is currently sold, whether legally or illegally, and in many forms. At the end of the discussion, one audience member asked, why were we not told about this information before we voted to legalize it in November? Indeed, that is an excellent question. We have ample evidence yet many voters were unaware of this information. Regardless, legal recreational marijuana is now here in Ohio. The question is how we as a community want to deal with it, and I respectfully ask you to consider keeping dispensaries out of Worcester. Ohio law provides for municipalities to block local sales, and just last week, as Dr. Helmuth mentioned, Cleveland.com published an article stating that 47 cities, many of them in Northeast Ohio, have already done so. And they've done that for good reason. Studies from other states that have legalized recreational sales show that there is an increase in crime in the vicinity of dispensaries. And I quote, "We found that neighborhoods with one or more medical or recreational dispensaries saw increased crime. The rates were anywhere between 26 and 1,452% higher than in neighborhoods without any commercial marijuana activity." It's understandable that Worcester would consider allowing dispensaries. The lure of financial benefit from the taxes generated by marijuana sales is surely attractive. However, there are offsetting costs. The mental health impact, including for police and hospital staffing, the crime rate, which will surely increase based on the data from other areas, and the impact on businesses trying to find sober workers. Furthermore, the state of Ohio is considering legislation to remove the portion of the law that allows for local financial benefit, meaning there's a good chance Worcester would not end up seeing any additional revenue anyway. As a local business owner in Worcester, I'm extremely concerned about a dispensary near our building. In fact, I would venture to say that most business owners in town would feel the same. From what I understand, the most likely place a retail marijuana facility would be located is on the north end of town. And ironically, if you look at the data from the local voting recently, it was these residents who voted against it most heavily. As noted by the League of Women Voters member, with additional information about the negative impact of marijuana, many more people would have voted against legalization, both locally and statewide. Furthermore, even a yes vote in theory does not mean these voters want it located in their own neighborhoods. One of the primary arguments in favor of legalization and convenient dispensaries is that it will help keep it out of the hands of minors, because dispensaries will not sell to young people. Actual data, however, completely disproves this idea. Studies in Arizona, Washington, Massachusetts, Colorado, and California all show very clearly that dispensaries are selling their products to minors illegally, and that the percent of these illegal sales is growing the longer marijuana is legal. For example, when high school users in Arizona were asked how they obtained the marijuana, 21% of 12th graders, 13% of 10th graders, and 8% of 8th graders said that they had bought it from a dispensary within Arizona. That's a 2022 Arizona Youth Survey. I've got an infographic that I'll pass out to you in a few minutes that has all these statistics, so you don't have to remember them. Another study published by the Journal of Addiction found that living near a marijuana dispensary increases the likelihood of marijuana use and frequency of use among people aged 18 to 22. Please do not mistake this issue as something that falls along political party lines. Do not buy the argument that this is about stopping people from enjoying life, or that since now it's legal, we might as well make a profit from it. Keeping dispensaries from setting up shop in Worcester helps to protect our young people, our business community, and our property values from their negative impact, and it's fully allowed by Ohio law. We've seen other communities stepping up to stop them, and we should too. Lastly, in case you have any doubt about the harm caused by marijuana, I want to share a personal story. At 17 years old, my oldest son began occasional marijuana use without our knowledge. Within about 6 months, we began seeing a downward descent in his mental health and discovered that it was fueled by marijuana. He had no previous mental issues and had been a happy, well-liked, and well-adjusted person up until this point. He had no risk factors such as childhood trauma or strong genetic predisposition. He dropped out of college and was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, which doctors say was a direct result of his marijuana use. He's now 24 and has had upwards of 15 stays in psychiatric facilities, lasting anywhere from several days to 2 weeks. He spent 6 months in our county jail. He's unable to hold a job because despite the months he can be stable, as soon as he uses marijuana, the cycle begins again and often ends with a pink slip to a psychiatric facility. Our son has been permanently and irreversibly harmed by marijuana. share all this to say that I would not wish this on my worst enemy. And if I can do anything within my power to prevent this from happening to other families, I will. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to contact me if I can provide any further information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hopefully I have enough to go down here.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to committee reports, which we have none. And however, we do have a couple of public hearings that will be under the tutelage of Ms. Knappich. So with that, Ms. Knappich, I'll turn the floor over to you to proceed with your public hearings.
Mr. President, I
Yes.
need to recuse myself from the first public hearing and the associated ordinance.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Zay. Proceed.
All right, this public hearing is related to ordinance number 2024-19, and this is an amendment to the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio, to rezone land from R2, to R2, I'm sorry, not from R2, to R2, which is single-family residential, for property that's located in the northwest corner of Mechanicsburg Road and Silver Road. Can we hear from any proponents? Mr. Starlin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, representing the managing partner for Worcester Development Company. And the request before you is, as Councilmember Knappich outlined, it's a rezone from I-2 to R2. 44 acres is the main plot. There's another 10 acres that are being considered as well. Really want to just talk real quick how this came about, right? If you have been up to Oak Hill and Spring Run, you've seen the success that that project has had. An update today is in 14 months of sales of a Spring Run. As of today, 67 of those lots have been sold. So that is a stellar performance, and we're really, really pleased with that. Obviously, it shows the pent-up demand that is out there for lots and for availability of homes. The process for us, really when we saw the sales of Spring Run moving quite rapidly, our focus was to continue to make sure that that momentum that we have with our partner in Ryan Homes continues. And the process was on to look for a parcel of ground. There's no secrets in the room when you start looking at where a development about 100 lots can go, limited parcels, right? So our process real quick was we surveyed all the lots that were available. We made contact with multiple people about interest in selling, number one. And then the biggest thing was there availability of water and sewer? That was gravity, so we didn't have to put in another lift station and go through that hassle again. And quite candidly, very, very limited options. There are some parcels where this could go. Quite candidly, the owners didn't have much interest in selling, or the price of the lot was merely wouldn't make it feasible. We did identify one site specifically, the subject site before you. We met with the city back in August to go over our sites and where we saw challenges with each parcel. And really, this was the one that we thought the viable option for us. We stressed the importance of continuing that momentum. We also aired our that with Ryan Homes saying that as well, that they want to continue that momentum. And then the formal request for the rezone started last month. It went to Planning Commission, and it received unanimous support for the rezone. I do want to say that this isn't just a request. We have a plan in place. So Planning Commission will see our plan, and I think it's out there, it's public, but it's on 108 lots. At that site, Ryan Homes, we things take a lot longer than what you anticipate, right? Our goal would be to have an aggressive timeline, and thank you to the city administration for sitting down with us and saying, what's the quickest we think we can move this forward? Our goal would be to be in a position to move dirt this fall, with next spring, that being open. Why is that so important? We really anticipate that spring run will be completely done in the first quarter of '25. And then we can slide our tradespeople, we can slide our sales staff from my homes right over to the next development. So that is why this is so important for us, and we do appreciate the work that city administration has done as far as guidance on this and your consideration this evening. A partner in the development also, Mr. Doug Druschel is here if there's any questions. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
What will be the price point?
Yeah, price point, we talked about that, everybody wants to know, right? So, about 18 months ago, the starting price point was 180. These will be right at 200 will be the bottom line. That is about as cheap as you can, about most economical, use that word, that you can build a home. Okay. Any other questions?
That's all for me.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak in favor of the rezoning?
Good evening, council members. Mr. Mayor, good evening. My name is Terry Lincoln. I'm general counsel attorney for Seaman Corporation. And as many of you may know, we would be neighbors with this development. And we welcome the development and would be supportive of it and understand the potential economic benefits to the community. That being said, should the development go forward, we would hope that during the planning process, some of our concerns could be addressed, and we are more than willing to work with you all and the development company and Ryan to try to work through those. And really our concerns relate to proximity. As you know, there are quite a few industrial businesses on Venture Boulevard. They have daily operations with machinery and heavy trucks. It's highly trafficked with industrial type transportation. And what we would want to do is just make sure that there is an appropriate buffer. And right now, I think the setback in the plan is 50 feet. We'd like to see the setback to be greater than that. We'd also like to see some maybe some physical barriers, like some landscaping to help with noise mitigation. And another concern that we have relates to the way that the roads are depicted on the plat. Specifically, if you will recall, Venture Boulevard does dead end to Silver. And the proposed development would have a residential road that would essentially create an intersection and allow Venture to go straight through into the residential development. We feel that that presents some undue safety risk from a traffic standpoint, from a pedestrian standpoint, and we would like to see that road, I think it's depicted as Street A on the plat, be reconfigured within the development, again, to provide more safety, more space, and more enjoyment, frankly, for those that end up living and purchasing homes and living in that development. So, again, we're fully supportive of the development, but we do have some concerns and just wanted to express those here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick question for you. So the 50-foot buffer that you would like to increase, how much of an increase you would?
We haven't spent a lot of time internally discussing that, but the number that we were thinking about was 200.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Hi, good evening. Jonathan Millay, 538 North Market Street, Worcester, Ohio. To tell the truth, personal address is 1864 Christmas Run Boulevard. Wanted to just offer a quick update in related to when we talk about concerns about infrastructure and roadway. These do incorporate some major expenses anytime we do see a major development proposed such as this. So share that our Economic Development Office, as Mr. Starlin had alluded to, has been communicating with the development proposal, and one of the tools that we're thinking may be appropriate, because we have a combination of both industrial and residential under this proposal, particularly along Silver Road, there is some needs to update and upgrade that roadway. In fact, that has also been on our long-term engineering plans for quite some time. So we are evaluating the ability to utilize a tax incremental financing district, a parcel tip, a little bit of a different process from what we've utilized before, to help ensure that that roadway can be reconstructed in a manner that is beneficial for both the industrial users and whatever ultimate configuration there is on the residential end of it, should that development go forward. So as we shared before, TIP is basically a way that we can leverage and redirect tax revenues from the new development in the short term to help cover infrastructure needs that will again evaluate things in particular like pedestrian safety, and also to enable that reconstruction project of Silver Road to take place. So we look forward to getting some more information together for you on that, but just wanted to share that we're having those conversations and felt now would be an appropriate time to let everybody know. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Malay, let me ask a quick question. So actually then, the process that we're looking at here and the potential rezone, at this point, the developer has no intentions of doing anything with Silver Road.
So correct, that is our understanding that,
Other than put an intersection in there based on the design, which none of us have seen. Well, we shouldn't speak for the rest of the council. I know I haven't seen it, so.
correct, now, there would be a need for a developer to make certain improvements. However, in this situation, with the road being in the shape that it is, in part because of the industrial traffic, not all of that is necessarily obligated to the developer. So the question comes, how do we cover that cost? So TIF would be one mechanism. We are also additionally pursuing some grant funds to cover the industrial piece of it. So we're exploring a couple of different options to be able to help make that rehabilitation happen, because our understanding is, or how it's been represented to us, is having the developer cover all of that cost, especially with the entry-level style home that they're trying to establish, that makes that cost prohibitive. So from the city's standpoint, we're able to utilize grants to help support us on the industrial expansion side, and then TIF to cover costs on the residential piece, again with an eye toward pedestrian safety and connectivity. Also considering that we have the new Clear Creek Park with the playground nearby, it just presents some options for us to be able to help improve quality of life in that area without having to utilize general fund revenues to accomplish that.
Okay, so I'm going to continue my question. So at this point, there's a concern about pedestrian flow and industrial truck flow. I'd be curious to know what the actual number of trucks that are using that intersection at Silver and Venture Boulevard in comparison to the Venture Boulevard and Old Mansfield.
If I can just say something, so here's what typically happens. So like Jonathan said, Silver Road has been on our radar for a while. We like to wait until there's a development, if we can. If there's not an immediate safety issue, we like to wait till there's a development so we can leverage, in this case, potentially TIF dollars, or just a developer providing for some of the improvements to a street, so that it lessens the burden, on the rest of the taxpayers. So in this case, that's what's happening. And then the rest of that process, evaluating truck traffic, evaluating pedestrian traffic, other vehicles, evaluating the number of vehicles in and out of the proposed development, and whether those require additional improvements to the road, like turn lanes, all of that is part of the process that'll happen afterwards. If the rezoning happens, then all the rest of that happens is normal course for every development that we ever do. It'll have to go through planning and zoning, it'll have to go through engineering, it will have to go for the design of all of those things and evaluating all of those things, all the police and fire. So all of that is part of the process, but all that happens later, after this. All of that will be taken into account. Where council would potentially have another piece of it would be if we move forward with a TIF, then that would obviously have to come back to council to approve reallocating increases in property taxes towards towards some of that. Or if we apply for a grant, as Jonathan was saying, then we'd have to come to council to get authorization to do that as well.
So I don't have the specific figure in front of me, but as we get later into the meeting, I can share with you our traffic count figures. Mechanicsburg Road has roughly 4,000 vehicles per day. We understand that it would be a few hundred at most on Silver Road today.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
Would the potential TIF money cover any improvements or upgrades to the roadway on Mechanicsburg as well? Because I imagine that would also have very highly increased traffic, and specifically I'm thinking of, already kind of congested intersection of Highland and Mechanicsburg and Mechanicsburg and Miltown. I mean, those are a bit further down the road, but I'm wondering, how traffic flows.
So to benefit, for the city's benefit, in taking a look at trying to minimize exposure for our taxpayers overall, when we would move forward with a TIF, should council decide to do that, we would structure it so that should a traffic study or analysis identify that that development would cause that downstream effect, that we could potentially address it with those funds. So yes, that's where, getting into the legislative aspect of the TIF, we would specifically want to incorporate language that would allow for that flexibility. So when we went through TIF previously, we had very defined projects, but we left some flexibilities open. This would operate in a similar manner, but probably under a much simpler format because we'd be talking about a smaller overall project.
One more question for you. Pedestrian traffic. I'm quite shocked that even came up. Where are they going to walk to? There are no sidewalks on either side of that, any of those roads.
Well, that's one of the other aspects of TIF that made it interesting from a community development perspective. There is indeed, on Venture Boulevard today, which is an industrial area, if you go out there during lunch, you'll see people sometimes walking in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of the impetus behind the creation of Clear Creek Park, which now has a lovely brand new playground with, in part, a donation from the Wesley Johnson family in his memory. So that is now there, and we'll have this wonderful asset just down the road from where this development will be proposed. So what the TIF would allow us to do is to also be able to support, say if we wanted to, a bike trail that would connect that park to the development and could then be extended on to make some other connections down the road, perhaps leveraging some grant funds to accomplish that. So this means the TIF becomes like again, an option for the city to utilize the ability to create community improvement infrastructure, but doing so, redirecting the revenues of the new residents who would be occupying that development, not coming out of the general fund. So that would be a component of that. Could you make a pedestrian connection safely from the residences down to the park? There looks to be several opportunities to do so. So again, this is just strictly the zoning piece, so I feel that I've gotten us off track a little bit, but again, we felt that it was just important to share that there's an opportunity for some public-private partnership collaboration through TIF should this development move forward. And there are a lot of ifs. There's the proposal right now on the floor that zoning's permitted, and there would be the planning review processes, and there would be the developer's willingness and council's willingness to enact the TIF. But we wanted to share that those were options that could uniquely support this site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go.
Anyone else would like to speak on this issue? Anyone else from council? I'd just like to say that I'm glad to see that we're getting more housing in for people. I think it's been something that's proven to be very, very important for the community. And I know a lot of people would probably say $200,000, oh my gosh, that's not an affordable house. But in this day and age, it kind of is. There just aren't many options out there anywhere for something less than that. So I appreciate you bringing it into the community. So, yes, sir.
Ms. Knapp, the one thing I guess I would interject is that the concerns expressed by Seaman Corporation we're glad to hear those, but to some extent, they're outside council's purview.
Right.
Because you're going to vote on zoning it, and the issues that were raised really have more to do with planning commission. And for better or for worse, if you, approve the rezoning at some point tonight or at a later meeting, you're getting the regulations that go with that zoning. And the concerns would need to be brought up when the developers go to planning commission. So not to downplay the legitimacy of those, but it's not really for this body.
Thank you for explaining that for the public. I think we pretty much do that. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. We will end that public hearing and move on to the next public hearing. And the next public hearing, we've already heard two people.
Mr. Kazai's rejoined us.
Pardon me? Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
We've already heard two people speak, but the next is with respect to ordinance number 2024-20, an ordinance to approve and adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission and amend the codified ordinances in accordance with those recommendations. This is the legislation that would zone, which should change the language. We already have zoning for medical marijuana. And one of the things I want to point out to Dr. Helmuth is, if medical marijuana is a sham, as you stated, then we've already let the cow out of the barn. And I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but laying the groundwork here, we've already got the zoning for medical marijuana. Now, recreational marijuana has become legal in the state of Ohio. And I know there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of people have contacted me. Well, it only passed by a little bit in Worcester. But we live in a democracy, and the majority of the vote wins. So I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that basically this was approved 6-0 by the Planning Commission to bring this in conjunction with the already existing legislation of the medical marijuana. And a couple things that I would like to point out with respect to the testimony that has been given already, because I think it's important. I was on the opiate task force here in Wayne County for several years. I've also done research and in Colorado, in the state of Washington, some other places. And what I would just like to point out is that there are two sides to every story, and that you need to look into that and you need to research it. I 100% understand the dilemma here. The issues that were raised by the people who testified earlier are absolutely legitimate issues. But there is opposite information. One of the points that I also want to go to as far as Ms. Snyder's is that the information that was raised by Dr. Helmuth at the League of Women Voters meeting, that information was available out there. It truly was. So if people didn't know that, then they weren't educated voters. And that's important for everyone to educate themselves on what the law means, what the proposed law means, and what you're voting for and what you're voting against. I'd also like to point out that while there were anecdotal stories and some information provided to us, and I'm not disputing any of that. I absolutely not. I just wanted to point out that Ohio has the strictest laws and regulations in the country when it comes to licensing marijuana dispensaries, when it comes to licensing marijuana growers, when it comes to licensing marijuana processes. Ohio law does not permit sales to juveniles. If they are able to get the marijuana from a dispensary, then they're doing what they do at the alcohol store. They're using a fake ID, because otherwise, and I checked this out with our state senator, they cannot get in. As far as the moratorium goes, I just wanted to point out that the current legislation that has it on moratorium says the moratorium will last until the Ohio legislature passes rules for recreational marijuana. This goes before JCAR. The rules go before JCAR, which is the Ohio House Committee that votes on the rules to become administrative code sections. That goes to them on Wednesday. The other self-terminating language in our moratorium was or until July. So right now, under our current moratorium, whether we continue it or whatever the legislation is now, today, it's either going to end on Wednesday or in July. And to do anything different, we would have to introduce new legislation. So I just wanted folks to know that, to be clear about that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I strongly, strongly recommend everybody get as much information as they can and make their decisions for themselves. But I'm going to leave this legislation on first reading tonight, because I think it is a divisive issue. I think it's a concerning issue. I think the concerns that were raised tonight were important. And I would like to give my fellow council members an opportunity to find out as much as they can with respect to what's been presented tonight, so that they can make an educated vote. So that's my commentary. Does anyone else have any testimony or comments in favor of the legislation, the zoning legislation? Does anyone have any further comments against the marijuana legislation?
I guess I just, I don't know if now's the appropriate time for me to speak,
Sure.
or when we actually review this. So either way, we're going to hear it, so I guess I'll go now. So before I begin, I guess I want to clarify, just for the public's record, that anything council decides or talks about here has no effect on their ability to use marijuana personally in their own home. I think we all support that, and so it has nothing to do with limiting that or counteracting that. So as I've been considering this proposal, as you have, Ms. Knappich, I've done a fair amount of research on the issue, and I guess I would lean on the part that what I find is several issues or several things that I find a bit concerning. And so one is the issue that was already brought up about just potency in recreational marijuana. I think that it's pretty well documented. It's increased substantially over what it used to be. And I do think there is substantial data to start supporting the effect of THC-induced psychosis. I think that is definitely something that you can find is on the rise. I think finding unbiased research is a bit of a challenge.
That was my point.
Yeah, both sides have very good marketing initiatives, and so finding, kind of reading between the lines or finding that third part of the story is a little bit difficult. But from what I was able to find, it seems to be fairly inconclusive as to the long-term effects for individuals that consume the higher potency marijuana on a daily basis, but most of the data I was able to find seemed to indicate that the overall results weren't necessarily positive. Personally, over the last several years, I've had a privilege to work with several people who struggle with different forms of addiction. And I will state marijuana was not necessarily the cause of or the gateway to heavier drugs, but in every one of their stories, marijuana did play a significant role. And so my purpose in bringing this up isn't necessarily to add fear or fearmonger anything, but it's more to just add to the legitimacy of my perspective, learn from other people's personal experience. Many of these have stated that they would not, if we had a dispensary, be purchasing from the dispensary, but would actually continue purchasing off the street because it's typically cheaper than what they will find at a dispensary. And a lot of the data that I found from the Cato Institute, from Rutgers Institute for Substance Abuse, all indicate that in many cases where dispensaries are put in place, the black market in those locations tends to rise or get stronger. And there's several reasons for that, and that would be one thing that I would definitely encourage fellow council members to look at and look up. I can certainly share any links or anything that I've found that might be helpful for anyone regarding that. And so also I realize there's a lot of pressure surrounding this issue from both sides. And I know we don't want to miss out on tax dollars. I do know, as was brought up earlier, that several other of our local neighboring municipalities have in fact voted no on this. Personally, I feel probably the wisest decision is probably, okay, so I'll back up. I got a little distracted. Regarding the moratorium being in place till July, there are some things that we have not necessarily discussed as a council, such as it is within our purview to limit the number of dispensaries within the city. There are other issues that fall underneath our purview which we have not discussed, and I think one of the things that I'm not a fan of is feeling pressured to make a decision on something, legislation, where that legislation is not clearly defined in the first place. It's still being determined, still being decided on, and still being structured, and the framework is not completely in place. And so that's a concern that I have, because I feel like some of the legislation is fuzzy at best. And so based on some of those issues and some of the things that I've brought up, at this time, I am not really in favor of recreational only in the city of Worcester. And so,
Well, just to clarify.
just sharing that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just to clarify, we've already got medical, so it wouldn't be recreational only. And I absolutely understand and appreciate your comments and your viewpoint. I'm not advocating either way.
And-
I'm just trying to get as much information as
Yeah,
I can.
I understand.
As are you. And also, I think it's important to note that there's, and I should probably talk to the police chief before I say these things, but, you know, there's still the black market issue, and that's what our governor was most concerned about. Governor Voinovich, Governor DeWine was not in favor of the passage of medical marijuana or recreational marijuana in Ohio, but he does understand that there's the issue of fentanyl out there. And in the dispensaries, you're not going to find fentanyl. So that's just one more consideration, I guess.
Sure.
Do we have any indication that anybody locally has wanted to apply for a license? Because my interest has been in that if it's not somebody local, it's going to be somebody from Cleveland or Akron or Columbus wanting to come into Worcester to do this. And then that loses some of the local benefit then. So
Mr. Abernathy, it won't be a local, if I understand the way that the law is currently written, which, as you said, Mr. Gaffey, it's a little fuzzy, but the way that it's currently, and actually I listened to a webinar for a couple of hours today with some of the people who are working with the organizations that are trying to put this forward, along with government officials, but the first round of people who will be allowed to apply and to receive the licenses are already, they're existing dispensaries, they're existing medical dispensaries in Ohio. So that way they already know the ins and outs, they know the licensing requirements, they know all of those standards. So it might not technically be somebody who lives in our community. It is somebody who has, I believe, business ties to this community and has just done a little bit of research to find out if it's even going to be a possibility here.
I would like to clarify, maybe my statement at the end, I'm in favor of leaving the legislation as it is right now, meaning medical marijuana, fine. I think it's opening the door to, potentially opening the door to a recreational-only dispensary that I'm saying I'm not in favor of.
And I'm in agreement with Mr. Gaffey. At this time, I would say I'm against a recreational dispensary as well.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Just to clarify one of the comments you made regarding Resolution 2024-39 on the moratorium, it does have self-limiting provisions, and it will expire. However, the preceding legislation for the changing of our zoning, if we vote no on that, that would be continuing medical only, basically, because that legislation is where we would add the recreational. If we were to vote no on that, it wouldn't matter when the ban expired, because there wouldn't be an opportunity in our zoning code to allow it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Okay.
I didn't mean to misstate something.
That's okay, just making sure
Absolutely.
I kind of was looking at you, I have that correct, right?
Yes, there are two pieces of
okay.
legislation. One is to change the zoning, and it would only add recreational marijuana. We've already got the medical marijuana. And the other is to end the moratorium.
Which doesn't really matter anyway, because it's going to end
Exactly.
anyway.
And that was
So
my-
really,
that was the only
it's the
reason I
first
raised
piece of
that.
legislation about the zoning that matters. And
Exactly, that was
if
what
we
I-
say no to that, that pretty well ends the whole
Correct.
conversation.
Correct, thank you for clarifying that.
So with the comments that we've heard so far, Ms. Knappich, do you want to wrap up the public
Absolutely.
hearing, and then we'll move on to the
I
rest of
was
this
just
discussion?
going to do that. It's 10 till 9, and I think
We
that's a
should
good
start the
idea.
agenda, yeah.
And now we can start the agenda. Thank you for everyone who spoke this evening. Really appreciate you coming in and giving your viewpoints. It's important.
Okay, so with that, we've had our public hearings. We have no unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business, which is ordinance number 2024-18, which Ms. Hamilton will read for us before Mr. Abernathy talks about it.
Ordinance number 2024-18, an ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so it looks like we're going to be budgeting the remaining dollars from the American Rescue Act funds. Excuse me. I think we're seeking to add some funds towards some biosolids Phase 1. So Andre, anything more you want to add to that?
That was it. I was in April doing my annual report, and I realized that we'd allocated a little under 26,000 for PPE, and we had spent $2,100 of it. So since we have one project left in the books, I figured it'd be a good idea just to drop those funds back into that project.
Okay, so we have approximately $25,000 that we're going to put that way. So it's money we got from the federal government. I don't see any reason to belabor this. I would put a motion to suspend rules and move this forward.
All right, Mr. Abernathy has motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, if you call the roll to suspend the rules?
Abernathy,
Yes.
Gaffey,
Yes.
Huzay,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Malta,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Okay, rules have been suspended. Mr. Abernathy?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Huzay. If you'll please call the roll to adopt.
Abernathy,
Yes.
Gaffey,
Yes.
Huzay,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Malta,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Motion is adopted. All right. Resolution, next item, Resolution 2024-34. Again, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-34, a resolution providing for the annual tax budget for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2025.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so it's required by law. Some of the highlights in this is the county budget commission will use this to set the millage. This is going to be a part of what we're going to be having a public hearing on next week. Andre, I'll let you kind of spell out anything else if you want.
Required by law, and I'll submit to the county budget commission, and they will approve our proposal.
All right, so because we're going to have a public hearing on this, we need to leave it on a first reading.
All right, very well, thank you very much. Move on to item number 3. Ms. Hamilton, if you want to read that for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-35, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for construction of a roundabout at the intersection of State Route 585 and Gyers Chapel Road within the city of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Ms. Warden, floor is yours.
Thank you. So as the administration was talking earlier about some, business partnerships and the pending expansion at Daisy, this just really highlights the need for this piece of legislation. So it's a request to give ODOT consent to construct a single-lane roundabout at the 585 and Gyers Chapel Road intersection, where we know we see a lot of heavy truck traffic. And this happens to be something that ODOT is willing to foot the bill for, so there's virtually no cost to the city. I did see a line in here that says the city would be responsible for 100% of the cost for using thermoplastic markings to restripe. So I think this is a very minor potential cost. So overall, I think that we're just going to go ahead and accept this gift from ODOT with open arms. So I would like to move to adopt, please.
Okay, we'll need to suspend the rules on this. So you're motion to suspend the rules?
Okay, let me have a little sidebar here, yes, but let me say,
Approach the bench.
all right, all of these, now this is something that past President Beitendijk showed me, that if you look at the actual piece of legislation, the one that's written in all the legalese, right? If it says introduced, passed, vote, those are 3 spots for different dates, correct? For that to be marked by Ms. Hamilton?
That is correct. So this legislation is actually produced by ODOT.
Sure. And it's correct on here, but I'm also looking at the other 2 pieces of legislation I have tonight that are budgeted items, and it also says introduced, passed, vote. So it's,
That is not 4 through readings. So if you see the ones in the 4 through readings, it'll say first reading, second reading, third reading.
okay, my bad then.
For the ones that are budgeted,
Can you put bold letters that say this is for 3 readings just for my pieces?
Will it be accurate?
No, that's true.
This is actually ODOT's legislation. It's my opinion that this is not something that's budgeted, because it's actually an agreement between us and ODOT.
Well, it says $0 amount too, but, right, okay.
So for that reason, I would say that you should go ahead and
That falls under the new $50,000 threshold, because it's 0.
Okay,
I took math.
we're going to make a motion to suspend the rules, please.
I'll second it.
All right, motion is by Ms. Warden, seconded by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, would you please call the vote to suspend the rules?
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Ms. Warden, motion to adopt?
Yes, again.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll to approve the motion.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 2024-35 has been adopted. When you're ready, Ms. Hamilton.
Shuffle my papers.
That's right. Read Resolution 2024-36 for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-36, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for the construction of an extension of the sanitary sewer for the West Milltown Road Sanitary Sewer Project and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, this will be introduced by Mr. Malta, and this is a budgeted item. So with that, Mr.
Is
Malta.
budgeted. It is for sanitary sewers for the proposed apartments behind Lowe's. If there's any additional questions, Mr. Rice has waited a long time to answer those for us tonight. No questions? We can move forward. It is budgeted, so I'll move to adopt.
Motion to adopt, seconded by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll call the roll to adopt.
Knappich,
Yes.
Malta,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey,
Yes.
Huzay.
Yes.
All right, resolution is adopted. We'll move on to the next item, number 5, Resolution 2024-37. This will be introduced by Ms. Warden, and it is also a budgeted item. So, Ms. Hamilton, please read away.
Resolution number 2024-37, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for microsurfacing portions of Portage Road and Palmer Street and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is a request for bids for microsurfacing of Palmer Street and located south of Bowman, and then from Portage Road, east of the bridge at State Routes 3 and 83. This portion of Palmer was last resurfaced in 2015, and Portage was last done in 2014. The asphalt in both locations is showing signs of wear and tear, but their useful lives can be prolonged with this process. I spoke with John today, and he explained that microsurfacing is a less costly alternative to resurfacing, but there aren't a lot of companies out there who do it. So this can potentially increase the lifespan of these roadways and save us a lot of money in the process, as long as we can find somebody to do it. So we're not really guaranteeing any particular timeline, but we're hoping that this can be accomplished this year. That way, if we wait until the road has deteriorated too long, then the microsurfacing wouldn't be a viable solution. So the expected cost is $225,000. If anybody has any questions, microsurfacing is kind of something I'd not been too familiar with. I guess I'm still not. I couldn't tell you how to do it, but yeah, Mr. Rice can answer your questions. Otherwise, I'd like to make a motion to pass this.
All right, motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Is there any questions or additional conversation required from council?
Mr. Rice, I don't want to put you on the spot if you know just a ballpark what a resurface of that section would cost, just to give the public an idea what we'll be saving by prolonging that, but you might not know that number, and that's okay, but it would be considerably more.
Yeah, I would say 2.5 to 3 times.
Okay, so we're looking at over $1 million versus $225,000. Okay, thank you. I just was trying to give people an idea that there's a reason for this, and again, it is budgeted. It's been part of the plan that we've had going forward since the last fall.
Last time we did this, it was several years ago, and we did Burbank.
Yes.
Quimby up to Elm, Melrose, from Portage, up to around Wildwood, and then, Milltown.
This east side.
Yeah, the east side, Friendsville to Cleveland, and those have all held up. The key is catching it at the right time, where it's deteriorated, but not to the point that it's too far gone, because then the microsurfacing doesn't work. So it's really a function of catching the speed of the at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rice, how far in both directions are you planning on going? Are you doing like Palmer all the way to Pittsburgh and Portage? How far east?
Pittsburgh, Bowman, and then Portage will be from the bridge at the or the bridge at the highway, up to 585.
Okay.
And when will these projects start?
Yes, August, September.
And how long do you anticipate them to last?
Micro is a pretty quick process. It's quicker than resurfacing.
Excellent.
But they're temperature sensitive, so really, once we get to the end of September, can't really do microsurfacing. It's just too cold. It's very temperature sensitive.
So those roads won't be affected for up to 6 months, correct? So it would be a short time.
It's safe to say that.
Okay, good.
It will not be 6 months.
Let's say, the people of Worcester are loving their city streets right now.
Wait till we get to the roundabout legislation.
What is the
Glad that was not
anticipated
mine.
time that
and I know it depends on traffic and stuff, but microsurfacing typically extends the life of a road versus repaving.
Maybe 5 to 7 years, if you catch it at the right time, definitely do that.
Okay.
It's a good investment.
All right, well, with that, Ms. Hamilton, if you call the roll for the vote, please?
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzay.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 2024-37 is approved. We will move on to another budgeted item with Ms. Warden, Resolution 2024-38. Ms. Hamilton, if you please read it for us.
Resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract with CISO, Inc. for professional design services related to the Burbank Road and Winkler Drive roundabout and the Burbank Road and Oldman Road roundabout, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this resolution allows the city to enter into contract with CESO, Inc., which is a professional design firm that we would like to do the design services for the proposed roundabout, as Ms. Hamilton just said, at Burbank, Winkler, and Old Man Roads. And I'm curious, is this actually a roundabout, or is this what I've heard to you as an oblong about? It's like a peanut-shaped thing, right? Okay. So we're going to have lessons out online, because I think the circles have been a challenge enough. But we'll figure this out, everybody. It's going to definitely improve traffic up there. It's at the intersection going up to the high school, the soccer fields, everything. And as we all know, that's really in dire need of some better design. So this design was originally scheduled to take place in 2025, but because of the increased traffic volume and the ongoing development, as well as potential for grant funding available next year, we're going to move this project up on our list of priorities. There's also apparently some leftover funding from the Oak Hill and Milltown Road improvement project that will help with the design phase of this project. Yeah, and so we're not talking about doing any construction over there this year. This is all potentially for next year. We're just going to get the ball rolling on the design so we're ready to go. Okay. Yeah, and so I would like to make a motion to adopt.
Ms. Warden motions to adopt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Any questions from council?
When in 2025 do you think is feasible? Since we're doing roundabouts everywhere, here, there, everywhere, whole city's going to be roundabouts. Just curious when we can expect this one?
You won't have to stop, though.
June, July.
I mean, we all saw the April Fool's joke that Mayor Reynolds is telling everybody to get out of the way, they're going to get run over on the roundabout.
It'll probably happen during construction time.
We're looking at next year or 26. It's
Okay.
not necessarily going to happen next year because there's going to be utility relocations that'll need to be done. There's right-of-way that'll need to be done. So when you talk about a project like this that has those types of, that type of work, you have to start a couple years out. So I don't think it's going to happen next year. It'll be more likely.
Okay.
We don't plan to do these at the same time, do we? Because it's really a burden on Burbank Road to be doing two roundabouts at the same
I
time.
think it's all going to be the same one.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, this will be one whole unit. Those are those two lights that are right next to each other.
all right, I see.
But Mr. Rice, all the work on Oak Hill and Milltown will be done before we start work on the other side? Okay. And also, what's the mayor's cell phone, so we could just send all complaints directly to him?
I think it's out there. Seems to be working so far.
We get it on a sandwich board right there.
Okay, well, with that, Ms. Hamilton, you call the roll on the vote, please.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzay.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes,
Malta.
Yes.
All right. Resolution 2024-38 is adopted. With that, we'll move on to some legislation pieces here that are three reading items. The first one being ordinance 2024-19, which will be introduced by Ms. Knappich. And at this point, Ms. Hamilton, please read it for us.
Mr. President, I need to recuse myself from this.
Okay, thank you.
Ordinance number 2024-19, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio, to rezone land to R2 Single Family Residential for property located on the northwest corner of Mechanicsburg Road and Silver Road.
All right, Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is the legislation that we had one of our public hearings on today. Unless anyone objects, I'm going to suspend the rules.
I'll second.
The rules.
Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the rules. We have a second on that suspension of the rules. Ms. Hamilton, if you please call the roll to suspend the rules.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Okay. Rules have been suspended.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Knappich. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Abernathy. Any discussion with council members?
Well, I just want to briefly say, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. Our city's been talking about needing housing and more housing and more housing for quite a long time. A part of our business community has been screaming for it. We have a proposal here to allow some zoning changes with the trusted developer in our community that's already has a very successful project underway. They're a known entity. We know they do what they say they're going to do, and I look forward to them obviously working cooperatively with the people out there at the Seaman Corp. and the other issues that might come up, but they've done those things before, and I'm sure they'll do them again. So I definitely plan to support it.
Good workforce housing.
Yes.
Okay with that, Ms. Hamilton, will you call the roll on the vote, please?
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
No, I'm kidding. Yes.
It's just after all that,
I'm just going to see if you'd write it down.
you're just trying to keep us away.
All right. Ordinance 2024-19 has been approved. Gentlemen, have fun with your development. All right, our next item, ordinance 2024-20, will also be introduced by Ms. Knappich, and with that, we'll have Ms. Hamilton read it for us, please.
Ordinance number 2024-20, an ordinance to approve and adopt the recommendations of the Planning Commission and amend the codified ordinances in accordance with those recommendations.
Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is the other piece of legislation that we had the public hearing on today. There's much discussion. I think it would be great if we would all go out and do our research and give it a lot of thought. And I'm going to leave this on first reading.
All right, very good. All right, with that, we will move on to Resolution 2024-39, which will also be another Knappich item. But before that, Ms. Hamilton, could you please read it for us?
Resolution number 2024-39, a resolution repealing a moratorium on the granting or processing of permits for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable cultivation, processing, or retail sale of marijuana within the city of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is the second piece of legislation concerning recreational marijuana, and was given to us as a package. Should we pass the first rezoning, then it would make sense to end the moratorium. However, since I'm leaving the rezoning legislation on first reading, I will be leaving this on first reading too. And as Mr. Meyer pointed out, one way or another, it's not really going to make any difference. There's either going to be a change in soon after they hold the JCAR hearings on Wednesday, or July will come, or we'll vote for the zoning, or we won't vote for the zoning, and it'll just expire anyhow. So I'm going to leave this on first reading.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to Resolution 2024-40. Ms. Hamilton, please read that for us.
Resolution number 2024-40, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise for bids and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for the installation of a new primary power service for the water treatment plant and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
So if we have any questions, I'm certainly going to direct these to Mr. Rice tonight. But this is secondary power or backup power that we're going to hook directly into AEP, opposed to continuing with our current generation power. Is that correct?
It will provide an alternate source of power. Right now, the power for the water treatment plant comes from the wastewater treatment plant. It has an AEP feed as well as a backup generator. So there are two sources of electricity at the wastewater treatment plant, and there's lines that feed over to the water treatment plant. However, there's also a step-up transformer, step-down transformer, and lines in between. So if anything happens between the two plants, then it cuts the power to the water treatment plant. And with the portable backup generator that we have now, we can't treat water, we can only pump, and it's limited. So that's quite a vulnerability. So this will provide a direct connection from AEP right into the water treatment plant. So then we will have that as well as the line coming over from the two sources of electricity at the wastewater treatment plant. Clear as mud?
Yes. And if there aren't any other questions?
I do have one more
Okay.
question. Would we be subject to any power outages for AEP? I mean, if they're our backup power source and it's not a generator we control, would we be subject to any outage that they would have?
Well, technically, we'll have two sources from AEP, because AEP will have a feed at the wastewater treatment plant, AEP will have a direct feed into the water treatment plant, and then we also have a backup generator at the wastewater treatment plant that feeds over to the water treatment.
Okay,
So there will be backup power in addition to the AEP.
so we'll still be using our generator as the backup to the backup?
Yes, there'll still be a generator at the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Is the generator operated off natural gas?
So what that one is, the backup.
I think it's diesel.
I think
That's
it's
the
diesel.
biogas,
I'm almost
yeah.
sure it's
Because of
diesel.
the size, because it's like a 1 or 1.5.
Okay, just based on the size, diesel might make sense.
Primary is biogas, the generator's backup.
All right. As a budgeted item, so Mr. Malta,
I would like to move to adopt.
motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the adoption.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
All right. Motion is approved. With that, we'll move on to the next four items, which all have to do with block grant and community development. And at this point, before we do anything, Ms. Hamilton, please read Resolution 2024-41, please.
Resolution number 2024-41, a resolution adopting an update to the City of Worcester, Ohio Citizen Participation Plan in connection with community development block grant activities in the City of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so we had several updates to go to our citizen participation plan. Had a good conversation with Jonathan today, who gave me some good updates, a lot of stuff that make it easier to make requests, and especially in the public records area. But rather than me stumble around it, I'd like to at least kick it over to Jonathan, let him kind of share some of the things that went into this, and share with the council some of the changes that went into it.
Thank you, Councilman Abernathy. Yes, this is our standard citizen participation plan that we are required to have on file for our Community Development Block Grant Program. We last went through this during our last biannual CDBG round in 2022. Typically, we wouldn't be revisiting this so early, except where we did have some comments when we were connecting on a recent audit. We got a passage in flying colors on that. However, a few of the questions that came up were just references as to whether or not we had a public records policy. Well, we do. And do we make accommodations for people who may be hearing or disabled? And we certainly do that as well. So the upcoming 3 items of legislation concern grants, and we figured that now would actually be a good time to maybe move ahead early and update this citizen participation plan with those references, just to make it really clear for anybody who might look at this to know that there is additional information out there should they want information on our public records policies and so forth. Additionally, this also provides an update to the Office of Community Development's Policy Notice 23-02, which just specifies that whenever we are going through the grant process, that we are going to hold and advertise a public hearing to share information on the grant opportunities that are available. We had our first public hearing back here in this room on April 25th. And then additionally hold a second public hearing, and we do that to obtain public comment, so that when we arrive with these legislation requests that we're moving into in a little bit, that we can share that we have definitively received feedback or have not received feedback, but in any event have made that opportunity out there to solicit and gain public comment.
Okay, any questions or comment?
In light of, at this point, just for my own edification or my own fancy, why is this, and again, I don't have an issue with passing this tonight, I'm just curious as to why it needs to be passed tonight.
I probably was overly broad. Of the 4, this one is less, there's nothing tied to this one.
No, we just felt that it was fitting to go with the requests that we have, because this attaches to our grant. So this would be a grant exhibit that we would include with the following 3 items.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't disagree that we might as well just do it, but at this point, as we're reading through this, I'm going, okay, I'm not sure I'm seeing the urgency.
There's no urgency, this particular piece.
I lumped them all together, and I should have pulled this one out because it's really different from the other 3. It's related to the other 3, but it's just more
no worries.
procedural.
All right, so with that, Mr. Abernathy?
I move to suspend rules.
Motion to suspend the rules, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the suspension of the rules.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzzay.
Yes.
Okay.
Move to adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Second, Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzzay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2024-42 will also be introduced by Mr. Abernathy, and Ms. Hamilton, if you please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-42, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the State of Ohio Department of Development Office of Community Infrastructure for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program for a Program Year 24 allocation grant to accept such monies if awarded, to execute any necessary documents in connection therewith, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so the next 3 are going to be the block grants. So just to give a brief overview of the block grants. So Ohio's actually a donor, and when we get into the block grants, this is actually a way to actually get some of the money back into Ohio. So when we get into these federal grants, we want to try and take advantage of this as much as possible. So with that, this particular grant is for $150,000, and we want to actually put it back into Community Action. I see James Fox here from Community Action. We're going to try and help low to moderate income communities for essential travel for Worcester citizens. So we see a lot of the transport that Community Action has been doing. So really, we're trying to put a lot of this money into that. So I know that I talked to Jonathan today, but I know that Mr. Montgomery also has been part of this, so I can obviously go to one of you two if you want to add any sizzle to this. So you two can duke it out on who would like to add the sizzle tonight.
This would just go towards our transportation program, and Jonathan can fill in any more detail.
Yeah, specifically, this is expanding our existing service, so we presently invest about $500,000 into our overall program. A small portion of that, about $140,000 a year annually, goes toward what we would call fully subsidized ridership. So those are people who are going to be elderly and low income, or permanently disabled, or otherwise extremely low income to the point that it's not practical for them to pay the co-share. Now, the majority of our riders are utilizing this to actually get to and from work, and those individuals pay a co-share. This isn't to expand that piece. This is to provide expansion for those that are fully subsidized. And the reason for that is that our transportation program benefits some of our residents. Some of our other residents have been benefited through other programs like 5310 highway funds through ODOT, which those are closing up. They're going away. They are expiring. And so there's now a gap. A handful of our residents who've relied on that fully subsidized service don't have that any longer. And so by utilizing CDBG, as those programs go away, we can expand our program utilizing federal funds so that our residents continue to have that fully subsidized service. And so, again, we have Mr. James Fox from Community Action Wayne Medina who administers the program. We would be entering into a agency agreement with Community Action Wayne Medina. We would basically act as a pass-through in that situation, and also Jan Conrad, who administers the transportation program for us. Excellent work in the past. This is an exciting opportunity to be able to support our residents, and again, using federal funds to do so.
Yeah. Supporting low to moderate income communities is very important. Using, these federal funds, these grants is incredibly important. So I open it up to the rest of the council for comments and questions.
I just want to say that Community Action has done an outstanding job and is such a service to the community for providing these rides so effectively, so efficiently. I'm happy that we can use federal funds to keep this going because it's such an important resource in our community. And I don't think people understand that there are folks that don't have cars or can't drive cars or don't have transportation, and they can't. It's important for them to get to social services departments, to get to doctor's appointments, to get to Viola Startzman, and these are the folks that provide it. So I am absolutely 1,000% in support of this.
Great.
And thank you.
Anyone else? Then I am going to move to suspend rules.
Motion to suspend the rules, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the suspension of the rules.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yep.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzzay.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
All right.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll, please.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Huzzay.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Resolution 2024-43. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-43, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the State of Ohio Department of Development Office of Community Infrastructure for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program for a program year 23 flexible grant to accept such monies if awarded, to execute any necessary documents in connection therewith, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
So this one is for $192,500 and would go towards Viola Startzman Clinic. This is for the psychiatric program there. So we've obviously heard throughout the evening different challenges for mental health here in the city of Worcester. This one in particular is going to be very important because to get a psychiatric program going at Viola Startzman, the challenge when we get it up and running there is the inability to bill for several months. And so this grant money helps to fill that gap. So it allows us to get the program running while they can't bill. So it really helps us to fill an important need and be able to still pay the bills at the same time. So this one has some urgency on it. We do need to do something by May 30th with this one. So Jonathan, if you want to fill in anything that I have missed, I know how much this one does have some urgency to it.
Sure, thank you very much. The flexible grant is flexible in that the Office of Community Infrastructure, we used to call that Community Development, has CDBG funds available for projects that don't fit neatly into any of their other funding categories. We happened to be on an audit field trip. We thought that would be a good idea with our folks down at the state to visit the Viola Startzman Clinic, who graciously allowed us in. And while we were there, explaining not only what our previous funds have been for, because historically we funded Viola Startzman through our allocation grant, about $22,000 over the course of 2 years, every 2 years. While we were there, it was described to us that funding for 2023 was still available. It had not been spent down. Typically, these funds go toward building projects. But they could also be applied for services in unique circumstances. This was actually a serendipitous situation where the state has funding available, and we have a project that we urgently need. The specific urgent need for the city of Worcester is that we have seen a severe shift in our call volume concerning mental health. In particular, going from EMS, fire, into police action services. A lot of calls with mental health dealing with individuals who are homeless in downtown, needing help, needing assistance. Unfortunately, when we do get involved with police actions, after somebody has encountered a trespass violation the 6th time over the course of a day, our police are in no position but to have to arrest the individual. Thinking that having additional support for meaningfully available psychiatric care could help to ameliorate some of the strain on our safety services, help to support eliminating some human suffering that our residents are undergoing. So this was a great opportunity to partner with Viola Startzman to help expand their services. As Councilman Abernathy explained, there is a gap in terms of when you hire a clinician, when they can actually start reimbursing the government for things like Medicare, Medicaid. That window can last 6 to 9 months. So by funding that gap, Viola Startzman would be able to hire a couple of additional staff faster than they would have. This program basically gets them 3 to 5 years ahead, faster. This also assumes, and we went into this knowing that they are seeking additional support through the Mental Health Recovery Board, so the speed at which they'll be able to expand is going to depend on support from that level as well. So that was something, all information that we've shared with the state in making a pre-application for this. The deadline is is going to be May 30th in order to accomplish this. Again, we're using 2023 funds that would otherwise go back to the federal government. We have in the audience Brian Riley, who we may remember from Wayne County. His talents as a grant specialist is now with Viola Startzman Clinic, and he'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any on their level. And I'll just finish by stating that part of this requirement with this particular funding will be for Viola Startzman to provide services focused on our homeless and low-income residents related to the mental health needs that are causing Worcester's urgent needs. And that we'll be meeting quarterly with Viola Startzman and Worcester PD to make sure that the grants this portion of the funding is being executed in a way that meets CDBG requirements and is addressing that urgent need.
I do have a question, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
How much, you may not have this information with you, but how much of the mental health treatment for the homeless are people who originally are from Wayne County, and how much would be from outside of Wayne County?
I don't have a statistic on that. I mean, it is common for people who are homeless to go from county to county and seek service. I don't have, I mean, we have statistics on what county a person has to have.
Okay. I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. That was kind of an obscure question to ask. Thank you.
Mr. Millett, you mentioned that the Mental Health Recovery Board funding, is this contingent on them being awarded that?
When we made the pre-application to the state of Ohio, we shared that the program is also requesting support through the Mental Health Recovery Board. The speed at which and the efficacy of their overall program is going to depend on the amounts of requested funding coming in. So our CDBG grant is helpful, and funding through the Mental Health Recovery Board is helpful. They also have a pool of local donors who have been helping to facilitate the free medical services that they've provided through the years. So that is helpful. To make the program scale as fast as they would hope for, that would be the most beneficial, of course, they would need funding from all the different sources. But the CDBG grant at least allows us to focus specifically on our downtown homeless population.
All right. Anybody else? Then I will move to suspend rules.
Motion to suspend the rules, second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Boudet.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
All right, motion to suspend the rules has been approved. Have a motion for us then?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Myers.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Boudet.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our last resolution, 2024-44, and Ms. Hamilton, if you please read that for us.
Resolution number 2024-44, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the State of Ohio Department of Development, Office of Community Infrastructure for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program for a program year 24 critical infrastructure grant to accept such monies if awarded, to execute any necessary documents in connection therewith, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so this grant, we're looking at $500,000. It's going to be towards Gashi Street. There's a lot that's going on here. So there are significant breaks. I think that what we discussed in our phone call was 15 breaks. We're talking about along the lines of the lines are too small, significantly undersized. Not good for fire protection. A lot of negatives here in a very low to moderate income neighborhood. So this grant's going to go a long way towards remedying some long overdue repairs that need to be done to some of these water lines. So again, I'm giving you the high level, but I certainly welcome Jonathan to continue giving us more of the granular of what this grant is going to do for our city. And again, I'm sorry, Jonathan, you tell such a great story. It's way better when you tell it than I do.
Well, thank you very much. Well, in any event,
Although you missed your kid's bedtime tonight, so don't tell us the
that is
story
happening,
instead.
but this does help put my toddler to sleep, so he's probably throwing a screaming fit right now.
Put us all to
It works well, really.
So, I will say on our very last page of the agenda, and we're finally there, we do have a map kind of outlining where this project is. So all CDBG funds for everything that we described, this and the previous legislation, it has to be dedicated towards supporting low to moderate income residents of our community. And it happens to be that we have such a concentration of low to moderate income in this particular neighborhood that it qualifies for this type of funding. So we figure, why not again try to bring that in, improve quality of life. And what you see on the map, you'll see a section of the line is highlighted in yellow. This is an area where we're still having breaks, and we need to address it because each time that there is a break, there's the introduction of, or the potential for the introduction of bacteria into the line, affecting not just the residents on that line, but the residents in the surrounding area as well. So yellow means that we have a 6-inch water main. That portion is approximately 90 years old, so much of this neighborhood was constructed in between World War I and World War II. So 6 inches is enough to get the water through to a fire hydrant, but at the rate that it's breaking, which is 3 times the industry standard, we need to do something fast. And by doing CDBG, we also avoid any assessments or incidental fees to the property owners. There are 86 homeowners, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say homeowners, 86 households located on this street. And then once you go to the last southern 2 blocks, you see that highlighted in red, and that's because that is a 4-inch main that is approximately 110 years old. And that 4-inch main is yellow, or is highlighted as red because it lacks the official, it lacks the proper diameter for efficient flow to support fire hydrants. So it becomes a fire suppression hazard. So that absolutely is something that we need to address. So this is on our capital improvement plan. We're looking for opportunities to, help cover the cost of this. Overall, this is an $850,000 affair for us to tackle, but CDBG can allow us to move forward faster with hopefully a $500,000 shot in the arm. Again, this and all other grants that we've discussed are, with exception of allocation, are competitive. So there's not a guarantee we will be funded, but we want to make the application.
All right, any additional questions or comments?
So I have a question. So when have we charged to replace water main?
My understanding is that we do not, but if there's
So
incidental
why
work
would
on the
you
laterals.
make that statement in your presentation if we've never charged for it? And, I mean,
There can be costs. I understand that in the past when we've done this, that there can be fees associated with connections if you have to do some upgrades with the laterals.
Connections, not the main water, not the water main itself.
Well,
Connections.
I think that's part of the application form, it asks that question, so I think that's why you brought it up. But yes, it's not really pertinent because that's not something that we do because it is enterprise.
So we do have to demonstrate that there are no fees charged as a result of doing the project.
There usually isn't anyways. That's fine.
I didn't notice it, on this, whether it's budgeted or not, are 350 matching funds from the proposed water enterprise fund.
So we will have to appropriate that as we go into the budget system coming up here in August. So this would be a project that would do construction next year. Absent of the grant, we'll probably need to request appropriation for the full amount.
Is there any moving from a 4 and a 6-inch pipe to an 8-inch, is there going to be any issue with pump providing enough pressure for anything, moving to that size of pipe?
That's pretty common that we do that upsize to 8-inch from 4 or 6, and no, pumping capacity is not an issue.
Okay.
I'm just curious, generally, how did it go 100 years before we fixed this water line? And how many other such water lines might there be in the city?
I'm not aware of many that are that old, but there's a lot of old cast iron lines last a long time. I actually used to have a piece in my office that we took up on Bowman that was close to that age and looked pretty darn good. It just depends on, the amount of water flows going through those lines.
How they were installed, what kind of bedding they have around them, there's several different variables.
So I lived there for about 13 years, and I remember within months after us moving in, so this was back about 2010, the whole street was torn up for at least a year. I mean, it was completely repaved, the sidewalks were updated. Why, at that time, if these sidewalks, I was north of Bowman, so it was a little bit newer, but why was this not considered then? Is it a funding issue that it was just something that wasn't, that we were capable of paying at the time?
I think at that time, that was a storm sewer separation, probably a sewer
Sure,
separation.
I'm just saying the road was already ripped up. I mean, I'm always one about let's be efficient and do all this stuff. So we're not completely, repaving these roads and inconveniencing the neighborhood over and over and over again in a short period of time. Curious.
Yeah, at that time.
Well, we've given them 100 years.
Well, this was less than that. This was the in between World War I and World War II.
Okay.
Well, I think at that time, the focus for that particular project was sewer separation. They were going through, of course, the long-term control plan mandated by EPA. And also at that time, they were focusing on other water lines. There were a lot of bigger, like, transmission lines that were having problems, and they were going after those at that time. So this is more of a residential. It's not a main transmission line, so this is one that was just lower on the list when that was done 15 years ago, and now we're trying to get more into these neighborhoods and take care of these lines.
I think there's certainly some frustration that it's taken this long to get to some very, very old water lines, but I think it's certainly very apparent that we can't ignore it anymore. So with that, I'm going to move to suspend the rules so we can start doing what we need to do to get to this.
All right, motion to suspend rules, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Call the roll to suspend the rules, please.
Warden. Yes. Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
All right. Mr.
Motion to
Hamilton?
adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Malta. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Warden. Yes. Abernathy.
Yes.
Gaffey.
Yes.
Guzzo.
Yes.
Knappich.
Yes.
Malta.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all. That was a whale of a list, a lot of topics to discuss. And now we'll move on to the miscellaneous, which we will give Mr. Thomas his due, as he's waited for damn near 2 hours on this thing.
Good evening. My name is Chris Thomas. I'm head of government affairs for NCTV. Just wanted to come and introduce myself, give you guys a card, probably brooch. Just a little information you're probably familiar with. We're a broadband and video company, been here in the Worcester area for decades. I'm relatively new to the role, so I just kind of wanted to make the rounds. And if you have any questions, concerns, not necessarily tonight, although I do my best to answer them, whether with constituents, with your own service, what have you, please feel free to use me as a resource. I'll be glad to answer any questions I can about our service, whether it's the broadband, phone, cable TV, anything like that.
Any questions? Guess not.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, Mr. Gaffey, we'll start with you on the miscellaneous.
anything to add?
I don't have anything to add tonight, other than just wish everybody a good week.
All right, very good, thank you. Ms. Warden?
Something really quick and I think pertinent to an evening like tonight is, I brought this up with Mr. Sanders kind of briefly. Just curious about everyone's opinion on this. We can talk about it at a later date, but would everybody be open to maybe bumping up our meeting time a little bit? Maybe to 6:30 or 7 o'clock? And I know that would still give us time to have committee meetings prior, or some of the things we need to do, but I don't know when the 7:30 thing started, but it's kind of, the older I get, the later it feels, so. Yeah.
I would not oppose, Ms. Warden, I would not oppose.
Thank you.
He's way younger than some of us.
So, yeah, just throwing that out there, if anybody wants to bite, then I'd be happy to sponsor that.
I would support that.
I don't even know if it need to be a council, does it need to
I think
be?
it's a charter thing, but I.
Oh, okay.
Does it, Mr. Scarelli, do you know if it says, I don't think it, does it dictates the date, but I don't know if it does the time. All right, okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Mr. Malta?
Nothing further tonight, thank you. Thank you for all attending.
Mr. Myers?
Yes, I've just got a couple things. One, I've known Dr. Helmuth for a very, very long time, and I haven't done the amount of research that some of our other councilmen have done on the marijuana issue, but I certainly respect his opinion. I think he's a well-respected physician in our community, so I think what he has to say carries a lot of weight. When medical marijuana was passed in Ohio, it may have changed, and I'm going to check, but at that time, the Cleveland Clinic and all their doctors, and they're a pretty well-respected medical organization, they told all their doctors they were not allowed to prescribe medical marijuana because they didn't feel that it was being controlled effectively, and the dosages were not being able to be prescribed. So there has been some concerns over all aspects of it. If you would like to read more about how drugs in general affect the brain, Dr. Nicole Labor has a book about addiction that is a very good book. If you want to learn more about that, I'd be even happy to buy you a copy. You just let me know. Number two, the transportation services. I appreciate everybody's support tonight of the grant for it to community action for those folks. I've had some conversations recently with some of our agencies. This issue is probably going to come back to council again yet this year. Increase in need in our community is picked up a lot, and I think although we've been very generous, and I've got to tell you, Mr. Montgomery, I got many compliments on the administration's cooperation on this issue, currently and in the past. Thank you for your support. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. We may be visiting this again before the end of the year. So, and third, Mayor Reynolds, you are correct. I am old enough to remember Frank Meadows. A great service to our community for many, many years, and he was a good friend to Chuck Malta's too when Chuck was coming up through the ranks. So he will be missed, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Ms. Knappich?
Two things. First of all, I want to say congratulations to the Worcester High School seniors who graduated this last weekend, particularly Mr. Gordia's son, who I've watched grow from birth to high school graduation. I haven't gotten any older, but he obviously did. And second, I want to say congratulations to Worcester's newest nonprofit organization, Worcester Community Gardens. They run Buckeye Street Garden, Buckeye Street Greens, Spink Street Garden, and Joe's Garden on Lorwell Street. They take empty lots, make them available to neighbors to have gardens. It promotes food security. It promotes neighborhood connections. I think in their new nonprofit status, they'll be able to do a lot of things and get some donations and fundings. The other thing that I think is very neat that they're doing is they're putting gardens at Nick Amster, and they will have gardens there for the people at Nick Amster, and they will be disability accessible. So congratulations to them. Nice job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Abernathy?
I think a night like tonight is what the voters in Worcester kind of expect from us, is that we had very, very good participation. We had a good crowd here tonight, very serious topics, and we had good conversation, good questions, good engagement from our citizens here in Worcester. So tonight we had differing opinions, which is good, and it's good civil discourse as well. And I think that we set a very good example for the people of Worcester as well, that when we disagree, we don't come across the table at each other, we can actually disagree and, do it in a civil manner. And so this was, in my opinion, a fantastic meeting, although it ran all the way to 10 o'clock. But it was a fantastic way to get through some very serious issues, very important issues. I mean, we covered transportation and grants for low to moderate income folks, workforce housing, marijuana. I mean, we hit some heavy hitting things tonight. So I want to thank everybody tonight.
Roundabouts. Don't forget roundabouts.
Good Lord, Mr. Myers in the roundabouts. And Mr. Rice is going to give us all aneurysms at some point with his roundabouts. But in all seriousness, great meeting tonight. Thank you, everybody. This was a wonderful council meeting where we all had a chance to have a great conversation. So I'll end with that.
Well, good, because if you didn't end, you definitely would have ran us to 10 o'clock.
Just doing what I can, Mr. President.
Take that as a warning, Mr.
Ms.
Buffet.
Jose.
I only had 10 quick points, Stan. No, just 3 quick things. First off, just thanks to everybody who showed up today. Just one clarifying point, it was made, the comment was made, I forget by who, I think Dr. Helmuth, 47 municipalities banned marijuana. It actually was, they just enacted moratoriums. I pulled the article up, just a clarifying point there. Second point, real quick, yes, I was a little frustrated about the Gashi Street thing. I just want to see the city bring more initiatives like that to us so that we can start fixing up some of these south ends of town. Mr. Mayor, I used to work for the late Brett Deffenbaugh and spent a lot of time with these folks, and I used to not believe them when they said the water at the south end of town tasted a little funny, and when I see stuff like this, it kind of reaffirms that and gives us a little kick in the ass to kind of get some of that stuff fixed. And third, I would second your motion, Jen, to move the time up, because I think you guys forgot, I have a 1-month-old at home.
I think we have some additional information.
Mr. Scavelli.
Yeah.
So I had to look it up because I didn't remember where it was. It's not in the charter, which is good news.
Yes.
It is in the codified ordinances. It's, in particular, it's 111.01, regular meetings, describes that such meetings shall be held at 7:30 PM. So that can be amended through legislation.
Yes.
Yes, I'd be happy to introduce that.
Draw it up.
I'd be happy to introduce that.
We have a meeting on the 3rd, Mr. Scavelli.
And we're starting at 6?
Okay. If that,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
One other thing from the administration.
I'm just gonna say, we'll have legislation for you next meeting. I'm gonna suggest that we take baby steps and just try 7 o'clock. And, if we feel like, we need to move back, obviously what we're sacrificing is the ability to do anything before. I want to, so committee meetings, other presentations. Let's try, I would suggest that we're gonna try 7 o'clock. We'll have that legislation for council at the next meeting, and like all things, administration's gonna propose and council's gonna make a decision on what you want. So, if you wanna make it 6:30, you make it 6:30.
That's what they hired us for.
Exactly right. Sorry to interrupt.
all right.
Motion to adjourn again.
Motion to adjourn.
Second again.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.